Hello and welcome back to yet another great video. So with this video today, we want to look at the Electoral College, okay? That was one of those big compromises that our founding fathers made during the Constitutional Convention. Because as you know, do we have a true democracy or a pure democracy in the United States? No, we have a republic or a representative democracy, okay, in which we vote for people to vote on our behalf, which is how the Electoral College works essentially in the United States. So we're going to pop over here to this screen, and we're going to look at the 2016 Electoral Map, okay? Now, you see all these different colors, okay? Red equals Republican, blue equals Democrat, and then you see each of the states has a specific number underneath their abbreviation. Now, each of these numbers represents the state's electoral vote count, okay? So how do we figure out how many electoral votes each state gets? We add the number of senators to the number of representatives, and we get that electoral vote count, okay? So every state gets 2 senators, no matter how big or small they are, and every state gets at least 1 representative, but can have many more representatives based on their population. So if you look down here at Alaska and Hawaii, they have 3 electoral votes each. Why? Because they're not very populated, okay? So they have 3 electoral votes. Also look up here at Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming. Those states aren't very populated, so they don't have a whole heck of a lot of electoral votes. Look over here at California and at Texas and Florida and New York. They all have a very large number of electoral votes compared to other states because more people live there. So looking at Missouri, we have 10 electoral votes. Now, math time with Mrs. Petty. If we have 10 electoral votes, how many representatives do we have? We have 8 representatives. Why? Because we have 2 senators, 8 plus 2 is 10. Bam, I can do math. Okay, so we have 8 representatives, which means that Missouri is broken up into 8 congressional districts, okay? So each representative represents a specific district in Washington, D.C., okay? We'll talk more about that later on. But if you look at Missouri right now, Missouri in 2016 went Republican, meaning that most of the people living in Missouri voted for President Trump. So because he got the most votes in Missouri, the most popular votes, the vote of the people, that means that he gets all of our state's electoral votes. Look over here at California. Most people living in California voted for Hillary Clinton. That's why she got all of that state's electoral votes. Okay? Now, if you look at a state like Nebraska or Maine, let's look at Maine for a second. Maine is mostly blue, but has 1 red box. Maine and Nebraska are 2 states that split their electoral votes, okay? So they split their votes based on how people living in congressional districts vote. So if Maine has 4 electoral votes, that means they have how many representatives? 2, okay? So let's pretend Maine is cut in half here, all right? So the top part of Maine, let's say that's District 1, they voted mostly for President Trump. And the bottom part of Maine, let's say that's District 2, they voted mostly for Hillary Clinton. Well, then let's look at the state as a whole. Because 3 of those votes went blue, that means that most of the people living in the state voted for Hillary Clinton. Okay, that's why she got 3 electoral votes and President Trump got 1. In Nebraska, they have 3 representative or congressional districts, and they mostly voted for President Trump. The state as a whole also mostly voted for President Trump, okay? So then how can you win the popular vote, the vote of the people, and then not become president? Good question. Sometimes the margin of victory is kind of small in states that don't split their vote, like Texas or Florida, that maybe you have a whole lot of popular votes, but you don't have a majority or you don't have the most votes in order to gain the electoral votes for that state. So just a few times in our nation's history has someone lost the electoral vote, won the popular vote, and lost their bid for presidency. And the most recent one was in 2016, okay? So the popular vote is the vote of the people. Whenever I go vote in November, my vote counts as part of the popular vote. The popular vote then determines the electoral vote, and the electoral vote determines who will win the presidency. Okay? If you guys have any questions, let me know.